Listen, Zach, carolers.
Huh, cool. But this is way cooler.
This season, gift Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro and surround the ones you love with the sounds they love with studio quality sound and intelligent active noise cancellation. Pair it with Galaxy S23 Ultra and power their listening experience with an epic smartphone. Shop these and more great gifts now at Samsung.com.
If I learned anything from the movies in the 80s, it's that the most famous people in the world are bouncers. Jasper apparently only has one band, and it's okay to rip out someone's throat with your bare hand. No one's putting Swayze in a corner on this one, so sit back and let us prove to you that Roadhouse is not that bad. Welcome everyone to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies. And it's very fitting today that we have a trifecta of people on the show, because not only is it myself and my lovely wife Carrie, but joining us from the Playlist Wars podcast, our good friend Gomez is back. Gomez, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
So excited to be back. I've been looking forward to jumping with you guys again, and the opportunity of bringing up one of my favorite 80s movies before the 90s hit us. I was excited to talk about this.
Now, admittedly, when I put this out on Twitter for saying that we were recording this show, you kind of jumped in like it was the Hunger Games volunteering for tribute. What is it about Roadhouse that made you want to join in on this one?
So Roadhouse was an iconic movie for me growing up. First of all, when you watch Dirty Dancing, you see him dancing the night away. And then you see another version of Patrick Swayze. The kick-ass version is the best way I could say it. And that's the version I love more than his dancing. So for me, it's seeing that. And as I got older, I became a bouncer myself. And I used his techniques and his methods, what he says in this movie.
Wait, you ripped someone's throat out with your hand?
No. I wish I could. No, but I was talking more like bouncing wise.
Rule number 3.
I was technically
be nice.
One of the things I always said, I wasn't, because when I was a bouncer, I was the cooler and the bouncer. So I had to take my own advice a couple of times with a couple of drinks to go with it.
Now, Carrie, for you, it's also a really important movie for you. Why were you so happy? Well, sad to find out the Roadhouse qualified, but happy that we're actually covering it.
I think for me, it was, again, a movie from my childhood. Big Jeff Healey Band fan growing up. So for me, it was more the music. With, again, Patrick Swayze is just so cool in his role. So, I was really surprised that we're talking about this movie, that it qualifies, because of the time. It was a great movie. Like, I don't know why the critics couldn't see that. Well, I'm here to defend.
We are about to prove the critics wrong. But before we get into talking about Roadhouse more in depth, it is time to take this Patrick Swayze classic and trailerize it.
The only thing cooler than cool is a cool cooler sent in to cool the temperature of a bar in need of a change. Enter Dalton, a man with one name and one way of doing things. But that doesn't work in a town run by one man, so proud of himself for luring a JCPenney's to Jasper that he'll trash, burn down, blow up, and drive through every other business in town to prove that you don't mess with JCPenney's. Watch a movie with a horny doctor, horny bar patrons, horny bouncers, and more animal horns than you can shake a spear at. Patrick Swayze stars in Roadhouse. Rated R.
That was great. I loved it.
Oh man, there is so much to dissect out of all of that. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this movie. It stars Patrick Swayze, Kelly Lynch, Sam Elliott, Ben Gazzara, and I hope I pronounced his name right, the aforementioned Jeff Healey Band. It was the debut of one Julie Michaels, and there were a bunch of other actors in there, including wrestler Terry Funk, which I found really interesting. However, there was an almost starred in this one, because it was almost not Kelly Lynch as the doctor in this. Annette Bening was apparently up for the role of the doctor and then got replaced by Kelly Lynch. Now, I'm going to put this out to you guys, and I'm going to start with you, Carrie. Annette Bening in the Kelly Lynch doctor role. Can you see it?
No. That I find that's no.
I find that appalling.
Just no.
like I'm looking at the look on Carrie's face here, and it's just like one of those, like it's almost like someone took our kids' socks off their feet after they come home from school and ran it under their nose. And like this is like no, not Annette Bening. No, back to the American president. No.
I couldn't see it. But I mean, again, that's acting, right? I just think that would really be stretching her acting.
It just feels a
skills.
bit out there for at least the roles that she was taking on a time.
It would be very out of character, I think.
Gomez, what do you think? Annette Bening in the role as the doc?
No way. I can't see her doing the sex scene.
No, especially not, pushed up against a brick solid wall that I'm sure hurt like hell.
Yeah, I don't think her back could handle that one.
Yeah, no, and no. This movie was directed by Rowdy Herrington. And if the name sounds a little bit familiar, he's the director of Striking Distance, which starred Bruce Willis and Sarah Jessica Parker, and A Murder of Crows. So a fairly decent director with a decent filmography behind him. The music, if it sounded familiar, there's a reason for that. And I'm not just talking about the Jeff Healey Band. The composer was Michael Kamen. And I say if it sounds familiar, there's a reason why. Because apparently he actually recycled some of the music that he did for Lethal Weapon for this film. And I'll admit, as I was listening to it, I could hear some of those little guitar tone or note kind of score pieces. And I'm like, wait. Is this a Patrick Swayze film or a Mel Gibson film?
Okay, I thought for sure you were going to say a Looney Tunes film, because did I not make that comment in watching some of the fight scenes? And I'm like, the score sounds like it would be like an Elmer Fudd fight scene.
The only thing you didn't hear were the horns, you know what I mean? That was the only difference.
It seemed out of place.
The horns. Yeah, it did.
Do you want to go to the double douche? No.
Be very, very quiet.
Now, unfortunately,
we're hunting women.
Oh, I think that was the sound, like literally the voice in everyone's head who went to the double deuce. I'm here for a whiskey and I'm here to battle the women. No.
Oh, God.
Now, this film did get some quote unquote accolades, and listeners, you can kind of mentally put the finger quotes in there, because at the 10th annual Razzie Awards, this was nominated for 5 of them. Didn't win any of them, though. So
should have.
Maybe, but when you realize what won, it's up there. It was nominated for Worst Picture. That winner went to Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Oh my God,
that one.
The reaction alone is like, yes, that was the Star Trek where they flew to the end of the universe to find God. It was nominated. Patrick Swayze was nominated for Worst Actor. That went to William Shatner. Rowdy Herrington was nominated for Worst Director. That went to William Shatner. So that just tells you alone how bad Star Trek V was. Ben Gazzara was nominated for Worst Supporting Actor. That went to Christopher Atkins in Listen to Me. And it was nominated for Worst Screenplay. That one went to Harlem Nights, not Star Trek V, surprisingly, which I'm not going to lie. Star Trek V. And I don't think this is even close. Like the first Star Trek movie, the motion picture, boring, but not bad, but boring. Star Trek 5, just stick your head in the sand like an ostrich and wait for the credits at the end. That's how bad this is.
That's bad.
It is. It is. Did you guys see Star Trek 5 at all?
Can I just tell you, I'm not a Trekkie, so no.
You're saving yourself. And Carrie? No.
She doesn't even want to reply on that one. Yes or no.
I mean, it definitely follows the rule of all odd number Star Trek films are the worst ones, and all even numbered Star Trek films are the good ones. You know, Star Trek 1, boring. Right? It's about 45 minutes of spaceship porn. Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan, amazing. Star Trek 3, Search for Spock, meh. Star Trek 4, where they come back to rescue the humpback whales. I mean, that's just a gem. Star Trek 5 is the final straw that broke the back of my patience. Star Trek 6 is amazing. Star Trek Generation, so 7, horrible. Star Trek 8, First Contact, amazing. So you see the pattern. Luckily, Roadhouse was not a Star Trek film.
Thank God for that.
Right. However, in kind of almost a redemption of this film, the official Razzie Movie Guide lists this movie in the 100 most enjoyable bad movies ever made. And you know what? I mean, clearly they get it. And it's just one of those things where it's almost like this film kind of found its legs after the theatrical run. Now, Gomez, you said you probably didn't see this in the theater. How many times did you rent this film from a Blockbuster?
At least once a month. For quite some time, because me and my dad actually loved that movie a lot. So that's another reason why it was one of my favorite movies, because this is one movie that, besides the Lethal Weapons, you know what I mean? This is one movie me and my dad could like really recite the lines and kind of laugh a lot. It's just one of those. I think it's a great movie. The critics wouldn't know their elbow from their head if they could tell them apart. I want a job as a critic. I bet I get paid good money to actually tell people what movies are about.
Well, just threaten them with ripping their throat out with your fingers, and then you can become a critic. But
I can't, because I'm Gomez from Playlist Wars.
Well,
I'm the nice guy.
well, clearly the critics are not following Rule 3, which is be nice. But Carrie,
nice.
one of the things, Gomez kind of touched upon this, and you touched upon this earlier, is that both of you were kind of introduced to this film by your parents. So, I mean, on the face of it, Roadhouse is not exactly a family-friendly movie. But
I was thinking that.
But Kara, I'm going to ask this to you. What was it about this film that kind of was a bonding moment for you and your dad? In rewatching it, I'm actually like questioning how it was that it was a movie that I grew up watching. Only in that I found that some of the scenes would never fly in a movie today. No.
Like, I mean, obviously, the bar shenanigans are going to be what it is. But as far as like the nudity, like that would never be to that extent. Like, It would have been a cutaway or something.
Not as mainstream as it was then.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me think, wow, how the face of movies has changed.
Oh, absolutely.
Over the years. Like,
yeah.
I think to watch it now is kind of like, like you really do see the difference in the style, and yeah.
I mean, admittedly, it is.
What happened to us all?
We got older.
There is at least skin equity, because Patrick Swayze's butt is completely front and center in this film. So. Oh
God, yeah. Jesus. It's like, can we get a better butt shot next time? It's like RoboCop when he was walking.
Now I'm just trying to picture RoboCop dialogue in Roadhouse. Like literally, you can see him walking up to a fight and go, "Dead or alive, you're coming with no."
Or the worst movie ever, Loaded Weapon, when Emilio Estevez is doing the big moon butt shot, and he does that walk like RoboCop.
Oh man! However, and I will say this, in all fairness, Patrick Swayze's butt probably did help the box office because this film had a $17 million budget and it walked away with a $39 million worldwide gross. When it debuted in the theaters on the May 19th, 1989 weekend, it debuted at number 2 and it was the only debut in the top 10. It did not unseat the number 1 movie at the time, but it was close. It was like literally about $200,000 difference. Roadhouse grossed $5.957 million, number 2 that week. Number 1 in its second week, and you're going to shake your head when you hear this, is the Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder comedy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
Really?
That held on to number 1 by $200,000 at the box office over freaking Roadhouse. I'm going to say this again. Roadhouse could not unseat See No Evil, Hear No Evil as number 1. What was wrong? I mean, it was close too, because like even in number 3, and still pretty much right behind at like just over 5 million, was the 5th week of Field of Dreams. So, I mean, it's a decent, like, if you take a look at that top 10, K-9's in there, Pet Sematary, Major League, Rain Man, Say Anything, The Dream Team. Like, there are good movies in that top 10. Dream Team was fun. It was so much fun.
That's another good movie.
But I guess the question is, like, why didn't this bring people into the theaters? Carrie, I'm going to toss this to you. Why didn't this film, bring in the people?
I really don't have an answer for that. I could only speculate maybe it was lack of promotion or like really the fight scenes were consistent or what was basically what this movie was based on. So, I mean, how do you promote a movie that's basically fight scene to fight scene to fight scene?
Well, it is funny that you bring that up because the marketing campaign for this film, rather than kind of promote the movie as to what it is, they pretty much promoted this as a, next logical Patrick Swayze step after Dirty Dancing, right? Like all the marketing was based on, the fact that Patrick Swayze was this heartthrob in Dirty Dancing. And then next thing you know, you've got him banging Kelly Lynch up against a brick wall. It's very much a very tonal difference.
But that was just a very small part of this movie. I mean,
and his butt and the people making out and having sex in the bar and
and Julia Michaels dancing naked.
Yes, we were going to be talking about the female parts in this film a little bit later, but the critics probably did this no favors either because on Rotten Tomatoes, this sits at a 37% tomatometer. Over at Metacritic has a 36% Metascore. The audience score is 66%, and I do wonder if some of that, of course, is people just kind of missing Patrick Swayze, and I wonder how much that has swayed over the years. But 37% versus 66%. Gomez, to you, which one is closer to what this actually should be?
I'm going to go with the audience score.
Carrie?
Agreed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Because the audience know what a good movie is, not the critics.
Again, critics, rule number 3, be nice.
Be nice.
Let's get to the breakdown here. We got to start at the top of the billing. Patrick Swayze. Gomez, we're going to head this one over to you. How was Patrick Swayze, to you?
On this movie, I don't know. I see him as the ending of the 80s era, like the Don Johnson era. You know what I mean? He had the long hair. He had the jacket. He had the clothes almost. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But he also had the karate skills or whatever. You know what I mean? But he was Mr. Cool, though. That's why he was the cooler. Mm-hmm. So for me, Patrick Swayze was like a god at this movie. I was more of a, like I said, Roadhouse fan than I was Dirty Dancing. But, I just love his demeanor in the movie. He could either be nice, he could easily talk to you, or he'll escort you out the door the hard way. Mm-hmm. At least he gave you options.
Carrie, over to you.
I absolutely agree. I think he was so cool and he played it so well. And I couldn't picture any other actor carrying that level of almost like he would walk into a room and command respect without even saying a word. And I thought that was so cool. And I think, again, it was just that coolness factor that no other actor that I could think of the time could pull it off.
It is interesting because when you think about the time, and Gomez, you started to kind of touch upon this with Don Johnson, but if you think about the action stars of that time, that late 80s, early 90s time, like your Bruce Willis's, your Kurt Russells, your Sylvester Stallones, your Schwarzeneggers, Steven Seagal, Mel Gibson. I mean, physically, any of those guys could do this movie. There's no question about that. But I think if they did, it would either come across as a, pardon the Stallone pun, but an over the top kind of action piece, or just a quip fest. But Patrick Swayze, and I think Carrie, you're right, he brought the cool to this. He brought almost a suaveness, a sophistication to a role that could easily be considered more of a hard ass, but he brought almost an eloquence to a rough role.
Before I went through with this, I actually looked up to see where he was born and hailed from. So Houston, Texas. So he had that. Like cool, like that. I think it made it more legit. Like when Sam Elliott, when his character was introduced, and kind of like it was almost kind of that like Western Southern cool.
Yeah, he was a bit more rough around the edges.
Almost kind of like, I don't want to say like a cowboy movie, but it made it kind of that.
It was very much a lone wolf kind of role.
Lone wolf,
exactly. Yeah. Maybe you can expand on this. Like the concept of the cooler is the lone wolf person trying to bring law and order to this very small microcosm of the town of Jasper.
Yeah. So, I mean, Carrie's saying it correctly. He's got this southernness, like the Southern Texas look. You know what I mean? Like, you see me, look at me and respect who I am. He always has his arms crossed, or his arms are to the side. And then, like you said, when Sam Elliott's character comes in, Wade Garrett, he's like, yo, like, what's up, dude? Like nothing happened. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. He just has that persona, or that swagger is the best word I could put it for him at that time. And here's the thing about this movie too. And I know we'll talk about the action and everything, but there was no bombs going off in the air or guns flying everywhere like you'll get out of a Die Hard or a Lethal Weapon or Commando or Miami Vice, you know what I mean? So this movie pays good tribute to the action, to the actual action of the movie. You know what I mean? So that's another thing, that this movie was a kick-ass film like that. It didn't need all the guns.
It was very much a mano-a-mano type film when it came to those fight scenes, even in the bar fights. I'm going to bring up a comparison too, because I am curious. Like, and not that I've done any research on this as well, but Gomez, I don't know if you've seen the recent Netflix Cowboy Bebop series.
No, I have not.
But there's almost a parallel to the cool swagger of Spike Spiegel in comparison to Patrick Swayze, is that they come into the room, very nonchalant, very non-aggressive, very non-threatening, and they only become, deadly when the situation calls for it. And I wonder, maybe it's a hindsight kind of thing, but I wonder if there was any of the influence of Dalton's character that went into a character like Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. And this is also just my plea for Netflix to finally do a season 2 of Cowboy Bebop. Don't cancel it. Don't do it.
Do you know what I absolutely loved was the scene, and I'm not sure if it had to have been intentional, but where Patrick Swayze's almost kind of I'm not sure if he was meditation in motion or if it was meant to be Tai Chi, but it was very martial arts styled. in his fighting and his even that scene where he's just kind of practicing in the sunshine. And of course, you know, they had like the sweat glistening with the lighting just perfect. I mean, that's clearly for the eye candy part of the scene, but it was very almost like beautiful. His fight style was very, I mean, he's very well trained.
Oh yeah.
And very
yeah.
athletic. So
Even the like the guitar playing in the background for that scene too is just, it fits. Like, I'm sorry, the Lethal Weapon music without the horns. You know what I mean? You just hear it and it just flowed perfectly when he's working out with that whole. You know, when I was doing karate a long time ago, it was kata. So that's what the movement is. You know what I mean? But again, he might have been. And I don't know what martial arts he trained in, but, you know, it's a different thing, but it's almost the same. It's just the discipline of that specific martial arts that he's almost like it's like his inner chi. It's just releasing the bad out and making him better for later.
It is interesting too, because, you know, you did mention, Kara, that it's more Tai Chi-esque kind of thing when he's doing that whole workout scene. And, you know, you can see, like, you know, that moment where he's, you know, hitting the punching bag and doing the, you know, doing the fighting doll, I guess, that's in the barn when, you know, when things are starting to go down. And you can see him start to lose that composure and the fluidity of movement from the Tai Chi scene to when he's basically just trying to get out his frustrations because things are kind of going downhill. It's funny. His workout scenes are more character building and character developing than I think they probably initially gave it credit for, or even intentionally.
again, I think it was poignant that they did show that scene, because even his method of diffusing a bar brawl was very, remain calm, again, remove the fight to the outside of the bar, but to maintain that calm, cool composure until it's time to defend, right? I mean, I kind of noticed on the other side of it, the attackers were always kind of bumbling. It was almost like the fight scenes, it was like, don't bore us, get to the chorus. They would go right into it. There were, like, in reality, there would be, a bit of a lead up. People would push each other back and forth, but no, not with this movie. They weren't messing around. They would literally, go right into it, right into the action, throw a punch, and then ask questions later. Like,
isn't that every bar brawl?
But I don't think so.
Pretty much. Trust me, I've been in a couple.
And I have seen a few from the stage, so it's always kind of fascinating. But
there's always a backstory. There's always a lead-up.
There always is a backstory.
Yeah.
Trust me, I've been in a lot of those too.
Dude scuffed my Pumas. Let's trash the bar. But the nice thing too about Patrick Swayze is that he is almost a direct opposite of Sam Elliott, Wade Garrett, in this, because Garrett is very much, that old timer who's been around too long kind of thing, gruff, grizzly, he's seen it all. And, whereas Patrick Swayze is more centered, more businesslike, more professional, Garrett's almost like the dark side of Swayze's character. And Gomez, it's one of those things where it's like, is Sam Elliott the perfect guy for this role?
Oh, God, yes, he is. He is the perfect one, man. I wouldn't expect anybody different. I mean, the only one else who could probably pull it off would have been Mel Gibson, just because of the hair. But it's the way Sam Elliott is. He has these one-liners. Ooh, that has to hurt. When he kicks somebody. What's up, amigo? You know what I mean? He's got these great lines, and only Sam Elliott could pull that off as Wade Garrett. You know what I mean? He was the perfect pick for this movie, and that's me talking as a fan. I couldn't see anybody else. Maybe Mel Gibson, but there's something about Mel Gibson's voice to Sam Elliott's voice, and Sam Elliott wins that over Mel Gibson in a heartbeat.
Absolutely agreed. It's, again, that Southern charm. Like, when he showed up, he was the first scene. He's dancing with Swayze's girl, right?
Yeah.
So you can just tell that was his character. He would literally just show up and command the room, and I think that worked very well for the role. And you're right. He would be the punch first, ask questions later, whereas Swayze is more of that calm demeanor.
Mm-hmm. I think you had to have someone with more of a cowboy attitude, because if you think about, the bar scene that they came up through, and you can see that in a little bit of the dialogue between Dalton and Garrett, in that, they've seen the Wild West side of being a cooler and being a bouncer. They've seen the rough and ruggedness of this. And, yes, admittedly, I had to mentally stop thinking of his role in A Star Is Born, just because it's like the same damn character, except, one's a roadie and one's a cooler. But it's just one of those things where, you needed that sandpaper. You absolutely needed his sandpaper to show just how far Swayze has come, emotionally, mentally, and professionally. Garrett is almost what Dalton could have been, but decided to, go the clean way and try to center his life after, obviously there's a plot point in there where something bad happened. I think it was in Memphis, and that's one of those things where it's like, Garrett is what it could have been if he didn't walk away from that.
I agree with you on that one. I guess, he got into a fight, I guess, and,
there was a girl and a gun, and things didn't go right or wrong, and, people's throats got ripped out. It happens, rough night in Memphis, it's a Tuesday.
It would be like it'd be a Friday night in New Jersey too, you know what I mean? But it's funny how that all happens, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that they never really, went down exposition road. They didn't have to, spoon feed it and hamper it all on us that, oh no, bad things happen, all that. No, something bad happened. He's trying to put it behind him. It's there. It's absolutely there, and it needed to be referenced. One of the interesting things I was reading about this movie is that the initial cut of this film was over 3 hours long. So they cut out quite a bit. And I wonder if some of that, being cut out was just the ham-handedness of the backstory and just made it a leaner cut. But whatever it is, it definitely, I think, streamlined the story in a good way.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. One thing, though, is that with every action film, there has to be a villain. Mr. Brad Wesley, Ben Gazzara. I was curious about this. And Carrie, I want to hear your thoughts on this first here. Ben Gazzara, Brad Wesley, the Jasper mafioso, if you will. What were your thoughts on him as the villain in this?
I don't want to say too much because I really want to go right to the end scene. But
we'll get there.
Yeah, I know.
We'll get there.
Okay. I'm gonna take a pass.
Gomez, how was our Brad Wesley for you?
So Brad Wesley, he plays off as he's the mayor of town.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite scenes is when he's having breakfast and he's talking to Dalton. I brought J.C. Penney here, for Christ's sakes. That's just big one-liner, you know what I mean?
Very interesting, by the way, when you're a Canadian watching this, you're like, what the hell's J.C. Penney?
It's true. It's like saying to us, what's Lord and Taylor's over here in New Jersey now? Right. So I feel like in this town of Jasper, there was no mayor. Too, if everyone remembers the movie correctly, there was never a mayor in this movie either. I felt like Brad Wesley was the mayor of Jasper. Like you said, mafiosely killed off the mayor and he became it. You know what I mean? So he played this part very well. He played it cool and calm. He never yelled until until Dawn started messing with him a little bit. You know what I mean? Towards the middle of the movie. So he was calm, cool, and collective until Dalton started riveling his feathers when he went after the doc.
It's interesting, though, because, and I never really kind of put this together until you were talking about the fact that there's no mayor in this, is that arguably Jasper is a small town in this. They never really say which state it is, but it's a small town. You know, you've got a lot, everyone knows everyone, everyone's in everyone's business kind of thing. And I'm sure everyone has gone to the bar and fought with everybody else at some point in time, because that just seems to be the way Jasper is. But it's one of those things where he's so over the top in like the, for lack of a better term, the orgy of evidence that he's just a bad human being when you take a look at his house and the fact that he's eating his meal by himself while his girl's got a black eye over in the corner, and the shrine to taxidermy in his house. Like there's just an orgy of evidence that this guy is up to no good. But it's one of those things where you have to sit there and say, if JC Penney's is the hack, the hook that you're hanging your hat on in this, you ain't nothing. And if you were out of this town, like if you were in like an actual metropolis of a city, you would have nothing. And it's almost very bully-esque in that the bully picks on the weaker because it makes them feel stronger. But the minute the bully runs into someone that he can't pick on, that's when he starts to crumble. And I think you kind of picked on it. You pointed it out there, Gomez, in that, he's fine until Dalton comes along, and, Dalton basically upends the power balance that he's created in Jasper, and that just straight up messes with him.
Yeah. I mean, kind of remember the part, where I know we haven't gotten into the movie yet, but remember, he's not from the South, though, really.
No.
He's from North. He's from New York City, technically. His license plate on his Mercedes was New York City, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even pick up on that.
Well, this is where I kind of... this is how much I've seen this movie too many times,
You have analyzed this to its core, haven't you?
Yeah, I picked on some little things here and there. So he's really from... he bounced probably up in the city. So picture you're going from the city to the South. Two different things. Two different genres. Way different people. Mm-hmm. You got the people who talk like Southern accent like this, and then you got guys like me who are from the city. Yo, what's up? So, something like that is a different scene. So from where he went from the city to Memphis to wherever Jasper is, let's just say Alabama, because it does sound like a town from Alabama. He made the reputation of he is one of the best coolers in the world, with next to Wade Garrett. And he says that when Tillman's looking for him. I want the best. He goes, well, Wade Garrett's the best. And he goes, yeah, but Wade Garrett's old. Mm-hmm. Well, Wade Garrett might be old, but he could still kick somebody's ass.
It is interesting, too, that if Brad Wesley is from New York, I'd be curious what that character's backstory is. Like, was he like a failed entrepreneur in New York, and then he decided to go to Jasper to kind of, be the big fish?
Well, actually, I was talking about Patrick Swayze's character.
Oh, yes.
He was from New York. Now, Brad Wesley sounds like he's from the North too. Mm-hmm. Like so, you gotta think about that. He doesn't have that Southern accent.
So I do wonder if it's one of those things where Brad Wesley tried to make it in New York, couldn't make it in New York, so he moved to Jasper. Big fish, small pond kind of thing. It's curious, and I would love to kind of know that backstory. We do need to discuss something here. One of the biggest criticisms of this film is that the women are poorly written. I keep thinking back to this is a show Staged with David Tennant and Michael Sheen, and one of the characters in that, Simon, everyone just listed like, you can't write women. You cannot write women. They could not write women in this film. It's almost like you take a look at the Doctor, Kelly Lynch's character, and has like a 2-word, character description, sexy doctor. Is that too harsh for the characterization of Kelly Lynch? Like, was she better than that in this?
No. I think they gave her the right title. I mean, She didn't even have her first name. I don't even remember she had a first name. They called her Doc.
I think she's just listed as Doc. So it's like one of those things where you are literally, you are your job title. You're in essence a Smurf at that point. You are Stitch 'em Up Smurf. You know, that is pretty much your one sole purpose. But Carrie,
pretty much.
Carrie, we're going to ask the lady in the room here. In watching Doc, like, did it feel like you could have put anyone in that role because there was no meat to the character?
You know what? I think she was genuinely good. I mean, the scene at the end where, you know, Swayze just had that altercation and she finds the body in the water. It was like the fact that she turned away from him. I think that was pivotal because at that point she realized that the man that she loved, you know, was capable of murder. And I mean, whether it was right or wrong, and it was self-defense at that point, like it was him or me kind of thing. I don't know. I think like I would have liked to have seen a little bit more about their relationship before it went, you know, I don't know, straight to like, I don't know.
Straight to the director's cut or the deleted scenes of the DVD.
It was almost like the 3 hours of the movie might have, you know, they might have cut out a few details along the way, just because of the way the relationship escalated so quickly and then ended so badly. So,
it's almost like that scene from Anchorman. It's like, well, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, she did well. She did well with, I think, with what she was given to work with. And I would have liked to have seen a bit more because I really do think that she was more than just a sexy doctor. Mm-hmm. There was more heart and more potential there for her. And I think maybe the script wasn't allowing her to shine.
I think that's the key right there, is that there was potential for her. Because if you think about it, when it comes to Dalton and any main character, like central figure of any movie, there has to be someone that plays that character's conscience. And I'm just curious if Dalton's conscience is supposed to be Doc or if it's supposed to be Garrett. Gomez, to you, if anyone has to be the conscience in this, who is Dalton's conscience, and did they actually achieve that role?
I think it had to go to Garrett more than Doc, because in the beginning, you know, he calls him out where he's in a hog heaven with a strip club, and he's asking for information on Brad Wesley, and I feel like, you know, he's like, oh, what kind of trouble are you in? It's like, oh, nothing I can't handle. But it just shows that where he went to first, you know what I mean? So I think for me it would be Sam Elliott's character, Wade Garrett. Mm-hmm.
And you also mentioned too a little bit earlier on with Julie Michaels, who plays the we just describe her as the blonde that's always with Brad Wesley and whatnot, and the one that's, you know, constantly, let's be blunt, Patrick Swayze in the bar when he first arrives, and I feel bad for her because, you know, this is her cinematic debut. This was the first movie she was in. You know, she would go on to appear in other, you know, stellar sequels like Batman and Robin, The Scorpion King, and Jason Goes to Hell: The Final Friday. So there's, you know, the roles didn't exactly come for her. She is, you know, still working and doing some TV appearances here and whatnot, but it's just one of those things where it feels like one of those, again, poorly written, put the hot chick in because you know she's going to get naked on screen kind of roles that was very indicative of like the mid to late 80s. Carrie, am I missing something about her, or is there more to her?
No, and I think I feel badly for, you know, her as an actress because the role really did not allow for any potential at all, like, or acting potential, or, you know, she certainly didn't have any lines that I can think of. Maybe like one or two.
Oh no, she had lines, but
but there was nothing there was nothing substantial that, was pivotal to the storyline. It was, she was just, I hate to say it, very objectified, very, like hired for her look. And again, too, what I had mentioned earlier about this movie is that, some of the scenes, with the table dancing, with the, it was almost like that. There's no other way of putting it, but that prostitution scene where it was like $20 to,
She can be yours and only yours for $10 in the champagne room.
But yeah. Now I know why you got the porno music going.
Had to get the porno riff in.
Like,
got it.
I'm just like, again, my jaw kind of hit the floor when I saw that, because I'm like, damn, did they? Yeah, that was
They
that
done
was
her
in
dirty.
the 80s movie.
Yeah.
And and I guess that would never fly in movies today.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, and Gomez, I'm going to toss this one to you here, because marketing this movie, and you yourself said, like, you became a bouncer kind of after the fact and whatnot, and it's just like going to this movie. You have to think the initial audiences in the theater kind of fell into two categories. The ones who knew that this was just a straight up action film with a lot of good fight scenes, so dudes are going to go see it. And by the way, there's some TNA in there. And then you get the others who basically went because Patrick Swayze was in Dirty Dancing. Their hearts are aflutter. And then all of a sudden they're watching him kick ass, show his ass, and watching other people's asses on the screen. For you, Gomez, when you saw this, was it exactly what you expected, or did you go in with a different opinion on this, and then all of a sudden go, oh, so this is what I'm watching?
When I first watched it, it was kind of what I expected. As I got older and understand the movie a little bit better, you know what I mean? It was one of those like, ooh, really? That just happened? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like some scenes, like the Denise scene of when Brad Wesley goes, Elvis, play something. You know what I mean? And then you got the band playing this song, and she's dancing. You're like, wow, that, like Harry said, doesn't fly in the movies today. You know what I mean? So, now the respective of Roadhouse, like I said, it kind of fits that 80s, end of the 80s genre before the 90s hit kind of movie. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that it just happens, I guess. So now, like, as we're older, if no one has seen it, you're going, oh, Patrick Swayze, Dirty Dancing. And then guys like me were like, well, Patrick Swayze, kick-ass martial arts guy.
Right. What happened to what was it, Red Dawn? No, not Red Dawn. What was the one he was in? Because Red Dawn was like that was Raw Deal. I'm getting my Schwarzenegger and Patrick Swayze movies confused, and which has got to be hard because you have to think that those are two very different actors. But Carrie, you also kind of touched on this earlier in the show, in that this movie probably could not get made today, given the objectification of the female characters in this.
And that is sad, because I think this movie had to be made of the time. Again, even if they attempted to do something of the like today, it would have been very different. The fight scenes would have been very different. What I really liked about this movie is the constant action. I mean, there's really not much lull. So again, there's not much room for story building or backstory or characterization. However, it kept me interested. It kept me awake, right? For someone who has self-admitted movie narcolepsy. I think at the end, as things started blowing up, the town started blowing up, and everything that was close to Swayze was, being obliterated.
That's usually when you fall asleep, though, is when the action starts going. Full disclosure, Carrie is the one who fell asleep during X-Men in the theaters during the massive fight scene at the end, movie Narcolepsy 101. But there is one female character in this that didn't feel objectified, that didn't get the raw deal in the characterization, and who apparently was the most victimized by the cut down from the initial 3-hour cut. And that is Kathleen Wilhoit, who played Carrie Ann, one of the bartenders, the one who's always like, don't you know who that is? That's Dalton, right? Like, I'm going to put it out there. Gomez, to you. Does this film last 30 minutes only if he decides to just hook up with Carrie Ann?
Oh God, the movie would have ended as soon as he kissed her.
It's like, okay, everything's happy now. Not going to piss off Brad Wesley. I'm going to go with the nice girl.
Oh God, no way. He drinks coffee. Remember, he doesn't drink whiskey. He would need a lot of whiskey to kiss her.
But the funny thing is,
oh, I loved her.
I was about to say there was something about her, and
She was so cute.
When you think about Tillman, the owner of the Double Deuce,
Yes.
and when he's describing the way he wants to kind of have the bar go, he wants it to be a place where, yeah, people still go have a good time, listen to music, drink some beers, all that kind of stuff, but he wants it to be a place where, you know, you don't feel like you have to dress up with Kevlar underneath. Like, that's the kind of thing. Carrie Ann kind of feels like the clientele that he wants to have, and that's kind of, you know, the front face he puts out there. If you have a friendly, nice, pleasant waitress, that's going to affect how the clientele respond to her in the best way. So, Carrie, let me ask you about Carrie. What were your thoughts on her?
Spelled differently, by the way.
Spelled differently, yes.
You know what? Again, I loved her. I thought she was, in fact, I'm actually surprised, not surprised, but I in my heart, I was hoping that, you know, they would have hooked up because I liked her character so much. And the fact that she was a singer too, and is a composer in real life. So that was really a cool, I think that was an amazing opportunity for her to be able to display her talents as more than an actress in this role. It was kind of like a double star kind of thing.
Yeah, it is one of those things where if her role was cut down dramatically by the cut down from the initial 3+ hour cut, how pivotal was her role? Because there's this one scene where where they're driving Bigfoot through the car dealership,
Yes.
which I can't believe I just said they're driving Bigfoot through the car dealership. Apparently that like one day cost them like $50,000 just in all of that. But there's
By renting Bigfoot.
exactly. But while the bar staff from the Double Deuce is watching this happen, there's the big bouncer. Like, you know, the nice big bouncer that's there kind of standing behind her with his hands on her shoulders kind of thing, and almost kind of like protecting her. There's something about her and the rest of the team from the Double Deuce that makes them feel more like a family. And I kind of wish that they had, you know, could have developed that, because maybe Gomez, maybe you can interject on this one here, in that, you know, when you have a team at a bar that works like that, and there's, you know, they see a lot of crap, but they kind of have to have each other's backs kind of thing. Do you get that kind of, you know, pseudo family feel about the team that you're working with?
Yeah, you do. I mean, no matter if you're working as a bar or, you know, as a bouncer, or working at a restaurant together, or even in a legit football team or hockey team, you know, or even where I work right now, it has that family sense. You know, it's like the one girl's like the sister I never had, or never should have. You know what I mean? I have two older guys who are like brothers I wish I never had, because they pick on me way too much. Like, I'm the youngest. So, you know, it's a good family thing. You know what I mean? That's what he was trying to, say, hey, as bouncers, we have each other's backs. Like at work, we have each other's backs. Like on the football field, everyone's got each other's backs. In hockey, everyone has each other's backs. You know what I mean? So even in marriage, everyone's got each other's backs. You know what I mean? So it is that family type, like, you got my back, I got your back, we're brothers, we're doing this together.
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because the scene where the barn was burning and Swayze ran in to
go help Red. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you know what? Yeah, Dalton is like, he shows up in the small town of Jasper and he's the new guy. But everybody that he met became instant family. Either family or foe,
and that's
depending on what side you're on.
When he came in, he got rid of clearly what were the bad apples, clearly the ones who were the negative impact on the bar. And I mean, like anyone who works in a workplace and there's that one person who just kind of, spoils the brew, if you will, kind of thing. The minute that bad ingredient's taken out, everything kind of feels much better, much tighter, much closer, and much more cohesive. She very much to me is the heart of the staff of the Double Deuce. Yeah, sure, Dalton's the cooler, but Carrie Ann is almost the embodiment of what that team becomes, and she's that way right away.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
she got exposed to his butt.
Well, it's she doesn't get to be put up against the brick wall, so she, it's the consolation prize. She gets to see his butt. Speaking of the person who brought them all together, Kevin Teague, who plays Tillman, the owner of the bar. There was something about him, and I found it fascinating because when we first meet him, he feels a little smarmy, and even throughout the movie, there's this, you're not quite certain whether this is a good guy or not. In the end, yeah, he is, but, it was almost a bit of a head fake. So, Carrie, to you, Tillman, the owner of the bar, how did he come across to you? It's like, even when he comes in, it's, says, I want the best. I want you, whatever your cost kind of thing. Like, did it feel like he was going to be the guy that turns on him at first?
Well, again, it's interesting. In a small town, a very small town bar, like I tend to wonder where the money was coming from in order to pay Dalton and make it such an attractive offer, and even the scene where I think it was after a few nights at the bar or a few weeks or however the timeline, but where there's like the lineup outside the bar and his intention actually came to fruition, where it made the place the place to be.
Also, fastest Renault in history, right? By the way.
And yeah, I mean, again, it kind of left me wondering where the money was coming from in the first place.
And Gomez, when you think about it, we don't really meet Brad Wesley till about half an hour in, it feels like. So for a while, it's almost like, who's the villain in this? Is Tillman the villain? Is the bar the villain? Is the community the villain? Then we all of a sudden realize, oh, well, it's this guy. It's Brad Wesley. But when we first meet him, like, did he feel like the villain to you, or the eventual villain?
No, not with not Kevin Teague as Tillman. No, I felt like he was a genuine bar owner who was trying to rebuild a brand that he did. And, he does say he came into a little bit of money. Maybe he was married and his wife died. For all we know, maybe he won the lottery. Maybe he won a scratch off and he came through a couple $1 million, maybe. You never know. Did he borrow the money from Brad Wesley?
I was about to say, like, where did the money come? And that would be really interesting, because if he got the money from Brad Wesley and then turns it around, gets someone to be the cooler of the bar, and then all of a sudden this guy is messing up what Wesley has put together, that's even more motivation. And I wish, if that was the case, I wish that was kind of a bit more explored. It's just almost, like you mentioned, like, who's bankrolling this? Where's the money coming from? Because Jasper don't look like a small town, and you can only sell so much beer in a small town. Like, I get it, but
I almost want to see the recut, where that storyline is actually brought to fruition.
I would agree with that.
If there's ever the 3-hour, Roadhouse-ier cut of this, which, by the way, is probably not Roadhouse 2, because yes, there is actually a sequel. There is a sequel, and no
in
one from
2006.
Is there?
and no one from the
Yes.
first movie is involved. That's
Just the name.
straight to DVD, which is probably like a spec script, and then they slapped Roadhouse 2, Electric Roadhouse-aloo on it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question, though, because when it comes to Canadian musicians, there's always been this kind of thing about, for a Canadian band to say they really made it big, they have to make it in the States. For the Jeff Healey band, that this movie was kind of that moment. So Gomez, being down in Jersey, like, were you aware of the Jeff Healey band before this movie came out?
No, I was not. I got to admit, I was very interested and intrigued by the Jeff Healey band when I first saw this movie, because I was like, wow. Because I never knew he was a legit blind guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
And, as growing up, as I got older, I'm like, wow, he is really blind. And I thought it was just because of the movie. You know what I mean? You know how Al Pacino played a blind man in A Scent of a Woman.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you couldn't tell. Well, he was legitimately blind.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was a rare eye disease, unfortunately, as a kid, that he got with that problem. You know what I mean? So, kudos to him, and he had a phenomenal voice too. I wish growing up, I wish I heard more of the band, you know what I mean? Until I saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, see, like me, I'll say it, I like Nickelback.
It's okay to like Nickelback.
I like Nickelback.
It is okay. They are arguably the Bon Jovi of this decade when you think about it, right?
They are.
Yeah, because when they came out, like, they write catchy songs, they get played on the radio a lot. People hate them because they write catchy songs, they get played on the radio a lot. And now they kind of gotten to the point where they've been around long enough that people are like, well, they're not going away, so I guess we have to accept them. Like, that's
Exactly.
That is pretty much
But
like.
I actually do like them though.
Yeah.
They are a really good band, and I wish I wish I got to hear more of the Jeff Healey music more. You know what I mean? I hear it once in a blue moon when I'm on Spotify. I'll pop it on. I mean, we were talked about this when we were on Playlist Wars.
Mm-hmm.
We touched on this a few minutes. Like, who would have thought? You know what I mean? But it's one of those things. They had some good music. They had a couple of good covers too.
Mm-hmm. It was a heck of a soundtrack when you think about the songs that they put on. But Carrie, going into this, you knew who the Jeff Healey band was. This is a big thing for you.
Huge. I have to say that I was privileged enough to grow up listening to Jeff Healey. If I could make one recommendation of a CD, you have to listen front to back. It is all killer. See the Light. See the Light by Jeff Healey. Amazing CD. I grew up listening to him. I was so fortunate to have seen him play live at the NAC in Ottawa. And actually, I think for me, it was almost kind of like really, I don't know. It was like, those moments in life that you're so, it happens. It's a moment. But looking back, you're just like so grateful for that moment, and that Jeff Healey had a bar in Toronto.
Did he really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I went there a few times. One night he was there, and because he wouldn't always play, he would have other bands play on the stage, but he was there one night and played Roadhouse in his bar in Toronto. And that moment blew my mind. And even as I sit here and talk about it, I'm getting chilly bumps for that, to have that memory. So seeing him in this movie, it's so cool. Like, it's one of those, like it probably means more to me than it should. And I think maybe that's why I'm so drawn to this movie and why I liked it. I mean, aside from, the constant fighting and action scenes and
And Patrick Swayze's butt.
and Patrick Swayze's butt. Yeah, but for me, it wasn't the butt. It was that beautiful training practice scene of the martial art that he was practicing.
But the nice thing too is that it's not like when Alice in Chains was in singles or when Slipknot was in Rollerball, and yes, Slipknot was in Rollerball. It's not like one of those things where it's just like band performs on stage and hey, they're there. Jeff Healey himself was an integral part of the storyline. He was almost like the if anyone was the bundle of exposition, it's him, because he's got his ear to the ground on everything that's going on. He knows, what's going on. He knows why Brad Wesley is so pissed off at him, and he knows why, because it's the dog. Like, and the fact that him and Dalton were friends, because obviously bouncers and bartenders are going to know each other, kind of thing. It's just one of those things where, he was so much more than just guy on stage playing guitar. He was a pivotal part of the story, and I think that's key for him. It's not just band on scene. He was a part of the storyline.
Absolutely. And again, and I love too that it wasn't just Jeff Healey as a character playing Jeff Healey. It was his entire band. His guitarist, of which I'm so sorry.
The bassist, you mean?
Bassist. The
Oh,
bassist.
your husband is a bassist. You got to know the difference between 4 and 6 strings. Us bassists can't handle more than 4. We can't get past that. 5, what's that?
But the fact that he was brought into the scene too, and made a character. It was so cool.
I do have to point out, and this is going to blow your mind a little bit, because I know your movie taste, Carrie. The first band at the bar that Dalton worked at before he came to the Double Deuce was a band called Cruzados, and they broke up after this film. The singer from that band, Tito Lariva, and again, I hope I pronounced his name right, formed a group called Tito and Tarantula. That band was seen as the band that played the Titty Twister in From Dusk Till Dawn. So they literally went from Roadhouse to From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
So it's just like one of the things where you sit there and go, okay, movie house band. I like it. I'm all for it.
Love that.
and he was so good too. You know what I mean? And don't forget, he was in Desperado too, as the
That's right.
in Cheech Marin's bartending friend with the money. So.
Literally just show up in movie sets, play guitar, all good. So, kind of like Robert Rodriguez, show up on movie sets, play guitar, direct a few films. It's all good.
Yeah, can't go wrong.
There were a bunch of different roles, smaller roles too. I mean, I know Keith David played the bartender at the Double Deuce. We didn't really get to see him until like the last third of the film, kind of thing, which is a horrible misuse of a perfectly good Keith David. Seeing Terry Funk on screen, like wrestling fans with a big smile on their face. Like, here's Terry Funk, probably the, seeming like the perfect uncle of every single wrestler. Gomez, to you, seeing Terry Funk in this film, is this one of the more enjoyable wrestlers in a movie role kind of performances for you?
Yeah, it was, besides Hulk Hogan and No Holds Barred, but I thought he
You went there, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
What, nothing for Rowdy Roddy Piper and They Live?
Well, you know what? That's a hidden good movie.
That is a phenomenal movie.
That is a phenomenal movie. I thought he played that character so well. And one of my favorite lines is when Dalton's like, "You're out of here. You just don't have the right temperament for the job." And one of my friends was like, "What am I supposed to do?" And Dalton just looks at him. There's always Barber College. And because he had the curly hair, you know what I mean?
Oh, that do. But by the way, we can't rip on Rowdy Roddy Piper for They Live, because that is a good film. However, one day we are going to have to talk about Hell Comes to Frogtown, also starring Rowdy Roddy Piper. I guarantee you that film qualifies.
I think it does. I think it does.
But I want to get to the storyline a little bit here, because one of the henchmen kind of almost ruined the end of the film for me. And I say that because, up until, like the whole throat rip out scene, we have this very slow burn of a film. Not necessarily, I'm not saying the movie's slow, but it's a slow burn on the tension. It's a slow burn on the stakes. And then all of a sudden, it feels like the last 10 minutes of an episode of the A-Team where like Dalton goes to storm the castle kind of thing. But I have to bring up John William Young, who played Tinker. Tinker is the guy who went full Curly from the Three Stooges before getting crushed by a bear, a taxidermy bear, no less. Like, literally, you see the thing being tipped, and all of a sudden it goes, like, you went full Three Stooges. Like, and that's,
Yes, he did.
And that's the part of the thing that kind of almost makes me upset at the end of this film, because it devolved. You had a very smart piece, like a very smart film. And people are sitting there going, Roadhouse is smart. Yes, there actually is a lot of smart things as far as character development goes, as far as story development goes. And then it devolves into like the A-Team's got to finish the job so they can move on to the next week. Let's talk about that whole end scene, Gomez. When Dalton goes full on revenge plot kind of thing, full on rampage, was that good for you, or was that almost like a left turn?
No, I thought that was hilarious, that scene with Tinker. He's shooting a polar bear who's dead, a taxidermy polar bear, as Dalton pushes it on Tinker.
Yeah.
And then he takes care of Brad Wesley, and then Tillman, Red, and I forgot the guy who owns the
car dealership.
Stratemeyer came out, and so did Emmett too.
Yeah.
So all four of these guys come out with their shotguns and kill off our wonderful, evil biological man.
But the funny thing is, they knew what to do with those guns once they killed him, which tells me one thing and one thing only: they've done this before.
And the best part is when the cops come in here. What happened here?
I didn't see anything.
And I didn't see it. I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. I didn't. Whatever the three things are. Didn't hear anything. Didn't see anything. Not talk about anything.
Yeah. There was a rich man turned to Swiss cheese.
Yes.
Through a coffee table.
Yes. Bullet holes of Swiss cheese, and then when the cop goes, "What happened here?" Polar bear fell on me, and it's just seeing those three guys trying to hold their laughter.
That was the 18 feel of it for me. Like it's almost like, yeah,
it was the perfect spin-off. You know what I mean? That's the best way to end a good 80s kick-ass movie. I thought it was great. I thought it ended so well. Every time I see that scene, I can't stop laughing. I'm still laughing right now. Polar bear fell on me.
Oh, but it's unfortunate too, because you did have some smart character building, especially with Dalton. The fact that when he takes the job to go to the Double Deuce, he just tosses his beater car to the homeless guy who lives outside, I guess, his warehouse, but then takes his BMW, drives out to Jasper, buys another beater. Like, there's a methodology to the way Dalton works, and you see a very calculated approach. And again, in comparison to Garrett, who just comes in, kicks ass, and deals with it, right? Dalton is very methodical. Dalton is very precise and has a way and a pattern, and it works for him, right? Until it doesn't, obviously. But all that really good character building goes to waste when Tinker goes full Curly. Carrie, we kind of joked about it earlier, you fall asleep during the big action points of this film, but you stayed awake for this film, right? So did that kind of drift you off to almost asleep near the end kind of thing, or is this one of the things where it's like, no, this is the way this has to go?
No, I was waiting for the end scene, because again, the polar bear, that just makes the movie for me. I have to admit. The polar bear fell on me. But with that, what I wanted to draw attention to is where the hell were the cops during, all the bad stuff that's happening, that the place is getting like blown up and lit on fire. Now they show up, So, and again, I had mentioned earlier, I really think that was kind of the martial law that I loved about it. And
you almost needed Dalton like walking down the street, with some Frank Stallone song playing as he walks away from everything. Like it was
taking care of it, taking care of business.
But
yeah.
it kind of fell into that whole 80s trope of movies where the lone wolf comes in, creates his own brand of justice, and then walks away when the bad guy is dead. Like, and maybe that's why, or part of why this film didn't do so well at the box office, is that this came out 1989, right? We're past the 80s. We're walking away from the action movie, TNA filled for no apparent reason whatsoever, A-Team feeling, bear fell on me kind of, like it does. It almost feels like it's the, the swan song of the 80s action film, especially when you consider that like the next big film that Patrick Swayze did after this was Ghost. Now, part of that is because he had a knee injury. He turned down apparently Predator 2 and Tango and Cash to go do Ghost. Career-wise, probably a wise choice because, I mean, Predator 2 was a stinking pile. I personally love Tango and Cash. It's
I
one of
love
those,
Tango and Cash.
right? It's that guilty pleasure kind of film, like the fact, yeah. But I know Tango and Cash will probably be another one of those films that we talk about on this show because I'm sure it is poorly rated as well. But it does. It felt like the story was smarter at the beginning and then devolved into the 80s tropes near the end.
But I love that it happened. I love whether it was, just lucky timing. I love that they did produce this movie before movies started to change, and we all kind of, I don't know, like again, some of the scenes in the bar, the gratuitous sex scenes, like it was one scene, but it was enough to be like, wow, that would not fly these days. And how is it that Gomez, you and I grew up watching this movie, and yet I sit here as a parent today and go, ooh, I would not watch this with my kids. Like, I don't know, like, how is it that we have changed how we watch movies? I
don't know. I might watch it with my son when he gets a little older.
Oh, there you go.
But a little older kind of thing. I mean, like if this movie gets made today, it goes straight to Tubi. You have to think.
There wasn't a whole lot of swearing, so maybe we can get our kids on board watching it. I don't know. They would say there's a whole lot of ketchup.
Yeah, if you want to, accelerate puberty.
Nope.
No. But we are not the only ones who have spoken about this film. Twitter has spoken. The Shifty Bench podcast chimed in with one of my favorites from the late 70s. It's ridiculous and the bad guy isn't intimidating, but Swayze and Elliott are cool as I'm direct quoting here. That throat rip death has struck me. It's not brilliant or anything, but I enjoyed. He does go on to correct himself that it is in the 80s kind of thing. And it is like, yeah, Swayze, Elliott, they're cool in this. Like, and Gomez, you said you watched this and you eventually became a bouncer. Like, how influential is Dalton to people who are watching this movie at this time?
Now it's a different era. You know what I mean?
Yeah, now, yes. But we're talking like, that late 80s, early 90s.
I think he would be very influential, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think, he's the cooler. He's the cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
His rules and be nice is the way to go. Because if you're not nice, you're going to get a world of hurting. So I thought it was a great, he was just perfect for this role. I love him for this. I mean, again, Dirty Dancing was up there, but seeing him in this movie as an action, it was just too good.
Lee Milne chimed in with, I love this movie. As a teen, it was the fights and boobs that kept me coming back, but now it's simply Swayze. He's a cool dude. And there's again, we have to admit that this is the 80s. TNA is going to draw some of the audiences in because the movies of that time had TNA, and you can go back and watch a lot of those 80s movies and go, yeah, this ain't getting made today. It's just not like Carrie, you and I, sat down at one point and while we were waiting before a gig happened, and the hotel was showing Police Academy. The jokes in Police Academy, you could not write today and get away with it. You really could not. But it's one of those things where, do you find, what is it that keeps bringing you back to this movie?
Yeah, Dalton and Garrett, again, I loved their characters. They made this movie. They made it so cool and so watchable, and kind of as much as it's a movie, they made the role of the bouncer, the very methodical, the rules, right? Following the rules. They made that believable, that that could actually happen, and a small town bar could actually be more welcoming or more of a place to be. Mm-hmm. Aside from all of the other bad stuff that happens in Jasper, that part of it, at least the first half of the movie, is quite believable, and I think it's because of the characters.
Sean Faust has also chimed in. Gomez, Sean.
My buddy, Sean's my buddy.
He says, I love that movie. It has one of the greatest and most uncomfortable lines in film, with the greatest going to Showdown in Little Tokyo. The line of dialogue is, I used to guys like you in prison. Now, I need to, as I was doing my research, I read up on something, and I howled when I read this. So the guy who plays that character,
Jimmy
Marshall Teague, okay,
yes,
took his mother to the premiere of Roadhouse, and apparently, according to him in an interview, when he said that line of dialogue, she enthusiastically jumped up in the theater and screamed out, "That's my boy!" Coolest mom ever. If you're going to watch your son in a film go, I used to guys like you in prison, and go, "That's my boy." Oh crap, what did he say? That line's in there.
A mother's pride.
Oh,
that's, yeah.
Oh my god.
That has to be.
I love that story.
Right. Tim McCarthy from
story right there.
from the 2010 Minutes podcast. His initial response was, "Who the f- said this movie was bad?" He would then go on to list the great characters and names, the awesome wardrobes for the time. We have to go with for the time because this is very much an 80s wardrobe. Throat rip, Swayze, Sam Elliott being a smoke show, the randomness of the storyline, and the guy who tricked the husband into touching his wife's boobs, and more Swayze.
Did he ever pay the $20?
No. Which, admittedly, this kind of plays up to something that you mentioned, Carrie, is that everyone in Jasper seems like a complete and utter dolt, and the smartest people are the ones working the bar. It's just one of those things where it's a little random, but hey, that scene was funny. But it does feel more like a line you would expect in Revenge of the Nerds than you would in Roadhouse.
$20 a kiss.
Right?
Oh, no. $10 a kiss.
$10 a kiss. But it's one of those things, and Carrie, I'm going to ask you first, is that did the humor feel out of place in this?
I think it was important, because if there were no laughable lines of dialogue, then I don't know. It would just be a fight scene with some TNA. Mm-hmm. I think it was important, and it added. It definitely added something.
Gomez, how about you? The humor of some of the characters in this, a good addition or detracting from the feel of the film?
No, it was a good addition. You needed that. You had to have it because, again, there was a lot of fight scenes in this movie, so to throw in a little humor here and there. One of my favorites is when Dalton's explaining the rules. Mm-hmm. One of I was about to say, never underestimate your opponent. Expect the unexpected. 2, take it outside. Never start anything unless it's absolutely necessary. And 3, be nice. What? Being called a what was it say? I hate to say the words.
What if someone calls my mom a whore? I don't know. Is she?
Is she? Or, well, what if I was called a? Are you? It's 2 words to make something up and to piss you off.
Yeah.
He just was calm and collective. So when you get that humor side of it, those are the punchlines you'll remember in the movie.
Mm-hmm. I almost wonder, and if I may moot an idea with the two of you here, because you have these quips from the patrons, right? Swayze plays it straight and cool, and I think that works. But is it a different film if someone like a Kurt Russell is in the Dalton role? And I say
Yes.
I say Kurt Russell because loved him in Tango and Cash. The perfect guy for that role. Like, I don't think you could put, which is funny because if Swayze was being talked to about making Tango and Cash, if you swap Kurt Russell into Roadhouse and Patrick Swayze into Tango and Cash, which film is made better? Which film is made worse?
I'll be honest with you, Roadhouse would have been made worse.
I could see that. I mean, Kurt Russell, love Kurt Russell. Everything's better with Kurt Russell, but I think you're right. I think
It just doesn't flow.
I definitely think Swayze brought the charm, the Southern charm, and that again, physically wise, he was perfect for the fighting scenes. But I think it's that charm that that made the movie and that made the character for sure of Dalton. But I mean, when you think about Swayze's range, right? Having been in Dirty Dancing, and then again the physicality of Roadhouse, and then
Ghost.
almost, yeah, I was gonna go like almost his I don't know, his dramatic side for Ghost.
And let's not forget his role as Chippendale dancer beside Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live.
Yes, well that's iconic.
Right.
Yeah.
And also his other good movie, Black Dog, as a truck driver.
Yes.
Like I see Dalton in that movie.
And there are others out there. Yeah. Like he is a very accomplished actor. And
He is.
yeah. And I think Roadhouse is made better because of him. Right. And finally, the Bricked Pit podcast chimed in with, I think this was a deep satire of action movies. Taken like that, it's brilliant. And that's fascinating because I don't think it was made to be a satire, but, and Gomez, we're going to go to you on this one here. Looking at this movie in hindsight, can you look at Roadhouse as a satire of action movies and appreciate it more?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably. I mean, it still lives up to the action. I mean, for people who have not seen it yet, I see it. You know what I mean? Guys who've seen it, like me and Carrie, seen it since growing up, since 89, 90. You know what I mean? It's just one of those movies that it doesn't change and you can't get sick of it.
Carrie, how about you? Like, if we were to watch this movie again tonight, but in
Would
the
you fall
mindset, yeah, wow, but in the mindset that this is a satire of action films, does that change your perspective on this? Like, is that in hindsight a way to look at this?
There have been so many points from tonight's conversation that made me kind of look at this movie differently. And as I sit here and replay certain scenes, I'm like, And to consider it a satire is very interesting. It's almost like now I really want to watch it again tonight if it weren't so late. and to look at it from that perspective, I think that would certainly make the comedic ending a little bit more, I don't know, make it fit more.
And that's the thing,
more
like
explainable.
If the one thing that really stood out for me is Tinker going full curly at the end. And then like the whole last 10, 15 minutes of the film feeling like an episode of the A-Team. You get into that mindset. And by the way, thank you for the Brick Pit podcast and everyone who chimed in on Twitter with your comments. But yeah, if you go back and watch it thinking that it's a satire of action films, I think it almost justifies that last 15 minutes of the film and allows it to be as trope-esque as it is.
You know what? Now that I think of the fight scene where Garrett was introduced, where he arrives in Jasper, it kind of makes sense. It makes it, again, it puts it in that perspective that you're not taking it too seriously, and it almost makes the the bad guys kind of again a little bit more justified in their nature because they were so quick to throw a punch. Like again, it was almost kind of like, okay, here we go again, like on to the next fight scene because we have to. It's in the script. There was no lead up. It was just now we're on to the next fight scene.
Roadhouse as meta. I love it. But it comes to that point of the show. And Gomez, I'm going to start with you. Who is your MVP of Roadhouse?
My MVP, I know everyone would say Dalton, but it was Wade Garrett.
Okay.
He's got great one-liners in this movie. One of my favorite one-liners in this place has a sign hanging over the urinal that says, "Don't eat the big white mint." And the way he fights, before he gets killed, the way he takes over, tries to, dance with the doc right away. He's established himself as an old school Texan. Mm-hmm. I love it. He deserves the MVP. I would have said Tinker because he's just got that one great line. Pull over, follow me. Okay. But no, in reality, I would go Wade Garrett.
All right, Carrie, who's your MVP?
I agree. 1,000%. I admit, it might have got a little dusty when he was found on the bar. And he was perfect. I really enjoy Sam Elliott as an actor. Really, every time I see him on screen, I'm like, oh, he's just so great because he can deliver a line and it's just so cool. Like, yeah, he could do no wrong. He was absolutely perfect. So votes to Garrett.
I am going to pretend for a moment that I am on Playlist Wars. Gomez, hand me the axe. I am about to kill the trifecta.
Oh my God, the trifecta killer.
Because my MVP is one Mr. Jeff Healey. There is something about his performance in this, and maybe it's because I'm a musician and I play in bars and, I kind of associate a bit more with him, but there was just something so earnest and pure about his performance in this. It's just like one of those things where, here's this guitarist from Canada, from Toronto, making it big in a Patrick Swayze film. And as a Canadian, that kind of makes you smile to begin with. But the fact that he's not just there as the guitarist, he's there, as part of the storyline. He's Patrick Swayze's friend. Like he is ever the optimist in this, even though he's also like I hate to say it, the harbinger of doom, but because he does know kind of the backstory of kind of what everything's going on. He's the warning to Dalton. He's the one who's, he's almost the anchor point for Dalton and knows, helps him know he's in a good place because there's a bit of familiarity there. I did consider Patrick Swayze, and I did consider the actress who played Carrie Ann in this, but no, for me, as I kill the trifecta, it has to be Jeff Healey for me as a Canadian musician. The hat tip to the late Jeff Healey. Gomez, thank you so much for coming back on the show, playing in our playground. Where can we hear Playlist Wars?
So Playlist Wars, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, everywhere. We're also check us out on our website, playlistwarspodcast.com, where we have our shows listings. You can vote to who got it right. You can check us out on patreon.com/playlistwars, where you can pay to get on the show or get a shout out. You can find us on Twitter on Playlist Wars. Brian Colburn, you can find him at Brian Colburn on Twitter, and myself on Twitter at Gomez79. You can also find us on Instagram on Playlist Wars Podcast. We're pretty much all over the place right now.
Okay, if you start doing TikTok dances, though, sign me up. I got to watch.
Brian does the TikToks. I just do the Twitter announcements.
I do have to say to our listeners, if you haven't had a chance to go listen to Playlist Wars, absolutely go. Gomez and Brian are, the absolute goods when it comes to not just podcasts, but just being in the podcast community. Gomez, thank you so much for joining in. Carrie, lovely, as always. You never go wrong. And to our listeners, thank you for listening in. Now, if you think there is a movie that is unfairly maligned or is so bad that there's no way in hell that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on Twitter at NotThatBadCast. Let us know. We'll watch it, we will dissect it, and we will find the A grades in these B movies. Until next time, I'm Jay, she's Carrie. Gomez, thank you so much again. We will catch you next time on It's Not That Bad. Take care.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, Skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.